Good day, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Tech and Space Leaders Show, where we learn lessons from leaders of the next frontier. I am your host, Lisa Dreher, and I'm really excited to introduce our guest for today, Chris Faranetta. He is Vice President and co-founder at NearStar Fusion. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure. Maybe you can start by giving us a little bit of background on yourself and NearStar Fusion.
Well, great. Yeah. So real quick, I originally worked in the aerospace industry. Worked on human space flight. I had a very unusual career in aerospace in that I was one of the first foreign employees of Rocket Space Corporation Energia. Rocket Space Corporation Energia builds the Soyuz spacecraft and the Progress spacecraft, and they're the Russian prime contractor on the International Space Station. So that was I worked with them and for them in the 90s, and unfortunately, everything else that's transpired is it's very sad. But anyway, that's what got me into human space flight. From there, I went to work for Space Adventures, selling private missions on the Soyuz to the International Space Station. And from there, I just got very frustrated with the expense and limitation of launch vehicles. I've always loved space. I still love space. So I got very interested in non-rocket launch to space, actually gun launch to space. And a longtime friend, Doug Witherspoon, basically went to work for him at his lab here in Chantilly, Virginia. He's an expert in high performance ordnance and plasma gun technology, actually a world-class scientist in that field. And we're looking at things like impact fusion and space launch. And so this whole, both of us together, we founded NearStar Fusion, which is a form of impact fusion where the fuel capsule is magnetized on impact. And that's what we're working on now. We founded that company in 2001.
Wow. Okay. What an amazing background and just set of experiences. So tell us about, I guess, the major problem that NearStar Fusion is solving.
So that is practical fusion energy. And first of all, no one has gotten more energy out of a fusion reaction than the energy that is put in to drive the reaction from the quote unquote wall plug. We've produced, well, I say we, the National Ignition Facility, Lawrence Livermore National Lab, produced gain at the target. So they had a fusion reaction that produced more energy that was put in from the world's largest laser, right? That basically fused, that caused that target to fuse and they achieved ignition with. So, but again, so what we're working on is we have a unique form of fusion that we're developing, and we believe it's on a path to be practical, in that it would be a type of power plant that a utility could reliably and economically use to generate electricity. And the really exciting thing about fusion energy is that it's always on. It can power cities and it can scale. And so it's maximum power with a minimum of environmental impact. There's no other form of energy, I think, short of antimatter, which we can't really produce, that can scale to power the entire planet for forever with a minimum amount of environmental impact.
Fascinating. Okay, so how is a fusion energy plant different from a traditional energy plant?
So we have nuclear fission, and effectively, we're standing on the shoulders of nuclear fission, nuclear power plants, fission power plants. And so really, in short, fission, you have a fuel that's highly radioactive. It's a reaction that really, really wants to happen. right? And you've got to stay on top of it and manage it. Whereas with fusion, it's a reaction that really, really does not want to happen. And what you're doing is you're fusing two atoms together to get a reaction, and that's not an easy thing to do. You need to have temperature, density, and confinement to make that happen, to make a fusion reaction. It's not at all easy. We can make fusion reactions, but we're not getting more energy out than what we put in.
I see. So does that make it safer in some ways than traditional?
Oh yeah, it makes it safer, and also, for example, with our fuel. So here's our fuel. It's there's in this water there's deuterium, and so our approach is deuterium fuel. The easiest combination of fusion fuel, there are several fusion fuels, is deuterium tritium, and tritium is a mildly radioactive form of hydrogen, and and actually I have some here on my desk. There's tritium gas in this vial.
Wow.
You can ingest tritium and survive. It has the radiation that it emits is very low level. In fact, I know a doctor who accidentally ingested it, and to get it out of your system, you drink lots of water to pass it out, water or beer to pass it out. But yeah, you need to be careful with tritium because it really, really wants to get into the water table because it's basically a radioactive hydrogen. So
yeah, okay.
If you emit tritium gas, you want to make sure it doesn't get into the water table. And fission power plants, they can produce tritium. Coal power plants can also produce tritium.
Huh, fascinating. Yeah. How much more efficient and sustainable is fusion energy?
So with our fuel, there's basically a million-year supply of deuterium on Earth, and so this is kind of a marketing thing. So this is a can of our fuel. So there's enough deuterium in here. Now, mind you, it's a tiny fraction of the amount of water that's in here, but there's enough deuterium in here to run a house for 3 days. So that's the energy density. The fusion fuel is more energy dense than fission fuel, uranium-235. And so again, it's maximum energy with a minimum amount of environmental impact.
Wow. Okay. Can you explain a little bit more about your proprietary technology and how that works?
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to take you inside. No, and a very important thing I want to say, we know fusion energy works. And the reason that we know it works is that our sun is a fusion power plant, okay? And also we have fusion bombs, okay? So yeah, the problem is we haven't figured out how to make it work within a power plant without vaporizing the power plant and, to say, the greater metro area, right? And so to give you again, and forgive me, I'm going to use bombs for scale. Now, I don't want you to get scared or anything, but so a fission bomb that has a blast radius of about 3 miles, right? A fusion bomb has a blast radius of about 21 miles. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the difference in the amount of energy potential right there. So, but within a power plant, and now, like anything, there's inherent safety in our approach, and even with fission, in that you need a certain amount of fuel for a weapon, and we're only working with tiny amounts of fuel. And also, again, very important that we can't make if we were to try and use the same amount of fuel in a bomb in the power plant, we wouldn't be able to get the conditions to detonate. We just can't do it because of our approach. So what my point being is that there are just physical safety barriers in this approach that just make it impossible to weaponize. It's very difficult to weaponize. And that's another tremendous attribute about fusion.
You
And
make
I
this,
think it's important. Go ahead.
yes, you make this sound a little bit scary. So how do we, I guess, resolve that? That it is safe, or what are some of the—
It's just you can't do the same thing with you. So with our approach, for example, we need to accelerate the fuel capsule, 50-gram fuel capsule containing deuterium gas, and I'm going to show you what goes on in that capsule in a moment.
Okay.
We need to accelerate it up to 10 kilometers a second. Now, the reason we think we're able to get it, that's more than 10 times faster than a high-powered rifle bullet. And the reason we're able to do that, we think we're able to do it, and we have a lot of experience with plasma guns, and that we're using a plasma gun to accelerate it, is that the capsule is very small. And
Okay.
for something that would be, a dangerous bomb, your fuel is much bigger, and we wouldn't be able. The gun would then be massive, and we wouldn't be able to accelerate. So there's a natural safety barrier.
Okay.
So why don't I show you how the fuel capsule works? Because this is really neat.
Okay. Okay.
All right, and I'm just gonna stop it here. So this is a cross section of a cylinder, and let me just pause it. Slide ahead here. All right, so this is about 50 gram in size, 50 grams. So it's about this big, right?
Okay.
And inside, there's a small magnet. There's a coil here, and then this is called the hammer. And inside the hammer, there's our cold fuel of deuterium. And then there's deuterium gas in this chamber here, and a short circuit here, which is called a Z-pinch. And then this is the anvil here. And so what we're doing is we're accelerating the capsule. We basically load it in the back of a plasma gun that's about 300 feet long, 100 meters long. Wow. And we accelerate it up to 10 kilometers a second. So, and the plasma gun is firing these capsules once a second. And we shoot it into a chamber, and in the chamber there's a flowing waterfall of molten lead. And the capsule is going so fast that it hits that molten lead, and it's just like hitting a solid. I don't know if you've ever fallen down water skiing at like 45 miles an hour. It's like hitting a solid. So that's at 45 miles an hour. This is at 6 miles a second, right? So you're hitting a solid there. So on impact, the capsule produces about 1 megajoule of kinetic energy, tremendous amount of energy, right? Which heats the deuterium gas in that diamond-shaped chamber. And so the capsule begins to compress. And so the magnet, the black rectangle there, moves forward through the coil, and it produces a current, which then produces a magnetic field in that chamber. And so as the deuterium gas in the diamond-shaped chamber turns into a plasma, the magnetic field, and the chamber is shrinking because it's being crushed. And the chamber is shrinking, and that's causing the magnetic field to rise. And so we're pretty confident that we can produce a magnetic field in that chamber of 100 Tesla. So the impact produces temperature. The hammer and anvil produce density, and the magnetic field produces confinement. And so the deuterium turns into a plasma. This is happening at a fraction of a second. And it burns and ignites. And the diamond-shaped chamber ignites a secondary chamber of deuterium, and you get basically a ignition, a fusion fireball right? And that fireball produces charged particles and neutrons, right? And in this cylinder, there's a cylinder-shaped chamber. And on the walls of that chamber is also flowing lead. So there's there's that perpendicular wall that the capsule hits and then basically detonates. And then there's flowing, lining the walls of this cylinder-shaped chamber. It's lined with about a foot of flowing molten lead, right? And it captures all of that, the charged particles and the neutrons, all of that energy, and it heats the molten lead up to about 700 C. And then we take that heated lead and we run it through a heat exchanger, boil water, steam, make steam, generate electricity. So our smallest plant would produce about 50 megawatts, but this could scale up to power Manhattan. Manhattan on a hot day needs about 14 gigawatts of electrical energy. And this could scale to power the entire planet, essentially for forever.
Wow.
And that's only with deuterium. With this approach, we believe that we can grow the performance to burn aneutronic fuel like proton boron 11, which is just found in rock. It's very common. It's in borax, basically.
Huh.
And again, I can show you now, if we want to move to the next animation, I can show you basically a notional illustration of the power plant. And so let's see, let me just back up here. Let me give me a moment here. Now, here's basically the architecture of the gun. So the gun is 300 feet long, at least. And so there's a central barrel, and that's the main plasma gun. And then on the side, there are little plasma guns. See these little cylinders right along the side?
Yeah.
Those are little plasma guns, and a small plasma gun, smaller plasma. And they fire in sequence. And what they're doing is they're maintaining basically a wave of plasma behind the capsule, right? And that, using the magnetic Lorentz force, accelerates the capsule down the barrel of the gun. And so part of the reason that the gun is so long is we want to reduce heating and wear and tear on the gun. We could get to 10 kilometers with a shorter gun, but we would be burning it up. So we need to have, we distribute the wear and tear on the gun over that 300 feet. And also there, you see these boxes with little insulators on top of them. Those are capacitors. And so they produce the current, which is then conducted into the plasma gun. And we valve in argon gas into the back of each plasma gun, and the current hits that gas and turns it into argon plasma. And that's what we use to produce the plasma armature, or plasma wave behind each projectile as we're accelerating it down the barrel of the gun.
Fascinating. Okay, so how close is this to becoming a reality?
Well, we have a lot of experience in making, so I'm speaking to you from a 9,000 square foot lab, which hopefully very soon will be a 15,000 square foot lab. And for years, we've been building, we develop, rapid prototype, and produce plasma guns. In fact, we make plasma guns for Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, right?
Sure.
That's where it all began, right?
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of experience in that. And Doug, my co-founder, has been working on impact fusion. When he got out of grad school in 1982, he worked for a company that was trying to do impact fusion. And unfortunately, didn't realize at the time that we needed to magnetize the target. And by magnetizing the target, we can lower the velocity of the projectile. It used to be back in the early 80s, they thought they needed 100 kilometers a second, which is just a tremendous amount of velocity.
Indeed. Indeed. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is really, really fascinating. I think it's very new, probably to a lot of just lay people out here. So can you, I guess, give us a little bit of, I guess, how is this going to be implemented, or how far are we from potentially implementing this?
Well, look, it's going to take us. It's funny. We like to joke with energy. Nothing is ever easy. You get nothing for free, right? And so it's going to take us a minimum of 10 years,
Uh-huh.
probably about $600 million, which is actually cheap. But we're addressing a what $2.5 trillion annual industry market in electricity generation, right? And it's
Sure.
only going to grow. But for us, in the meantime, which is exciting, is with a smaller gun, we think we can produce medical isotopes. And so that's a fusion reaction where we're not getting more energy out than what we get in. We just have a neutron source, and we can use that to make medical isotopes that can be used to fight cancer. And so that's a near-term application for us, and we're very excited about it. So the gun actually has utility as we grow its performance from a smaller gun to a larger gun. And it's kind of fascinating to me, like all these technologies, AI, all these advanced technologies require responsibility.
Yeah.
AI can do bad things. Actually, with our plasma gun, it's not a good weapon because it's really heavy and bulky.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think is the biggest barrier to adoption of this type of technology?
Vision. And look, are we gonna destroy? Again, I'm a space guy originally, so I know how lucky we are to be alive. It's just incredible to me that we live on this big ball, and this ball has a force field that protects us from radiation. So
Yeah.
we're so unique. We need to protect this.
Yes.
And so what's really exciting about fusion, again, I'll say it again, it's maximum energy with a minimum amount of environmental impact. We need to preserve this planet. And with fusion, it gives us the energy to then explore the entire solar system and beyond, right?
Yeah.
If we're serious about branching out off of this planet, we're going to need fusion propulsion. If you're serious about going to Mars and sending people, you're going to need fusion propulsion. Because if you just use a regular chemical rocket, when you get to Mars orbit, you're out of fuel, and you better hope that when you're cracking fuel out of Mars' atmosphere, that your plant doesn't break down, because then you're stuck. Another neat thing about go ahead.
Oh no, I was just indeed I was agreeing with you. Yeah, very good. Okay, so if somebody wants to learn more about NearStar Fusion, what should they do?
Our website, nearstarfusion.com. Please follow us on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn. We just today announced our board of advisors, and we've got a great team, highly experienced, a bunch of gray hairs, and we need more. With this bunch of old white guys, we need more women, and but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But we have a great board of advisors, and they're very experienced, and it's a testament to our credibility and what we're trying to do. But also the Fusion Industry Association. Just Google that; and it'll come right up. And there are many other fusion companies doing different approaches. And the beauty of that is, not all of us are going to make it. We may fail, but we're going to try. And so one of us, I think, at least one of us will succeed.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I'm really fascinated by this conversation. Thank you so much for making time to be here today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Excellent. And I do want to take a moment to thank GuideForce for hosting these sessions. To learn more about GuideForce, you can visit guideforce.com. And we'll see you next time on the Tech and Space Leaders Show. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Again, my pleasure. Thanks, Lisa.